Well, thank you very much indeed, Adam, and not just for such an interesting presentation, but also quite a nice setup. So I've probably come the shortest distance to this meeting. I've just walked down the hill about 2 minutes from the ETI offices in the next building along. So the Energy Technologies Institute is here in Loughborough on the Science Park in the Holywell building just up there. And armed with my extensive experience of, I think this is my 10th week as the Director of Strategy Development, I'm here to talk to you about the ETI. And to give you some idea, I guess some of you have a lot of experience of startups. On the 1st of April, the ETI had 2 permanent employees and 20 plus temporary staff. By the end of July, we're going to have 22 permanent employees and a number of temporary staff. And maybe by the end of next year, we'll have 50 people, or 40. So the organisation is developing at a hell of a rate, and because the whole thing was announced 2 years ago, everyone thinks we spent a year doing nothing. Since we weren't there, I guess that's true, but it's no great help. I spent 30 years working for ICI. I'm an engineer. I don't have an MBA. I love technology. Towards the end of my time, I was working on complex technology strategies for businesses and indeed for the whole of ICI. And I have experience of working on big, heavy industrial technologies and also complicated consumer-related technologies. Earlier in my career, I used to design chemical plants, high-hazard chemical plants, and I'm afraid some of the points that Adam made about will it work and are you managing it properly are terribly close to my heart. Because in the real world, these things have to go out there and work. Now, my approach to this was based on the fact that my first concern was whether somebody would be killed or not, possibly me, or one of my colleagues or somebody else. And I guess, in Adam's situation, he's only concerned that you might be wasting a few £100 million, which is that's nothing compared to killing people, but it still makes you worry and think about things. So sometimes when people ask difficult questions, it's not because they're being aggressive or unhelpful or anything, it's because they have a real concern whether this is actually all going to work, and that really does matter. And it helps if you hold the thing the right way up. Oh, wonderful. So the purpose of the ETI really is to accelerate the deployment of our collective responses to climate change. And Adam went fairly quickly through his slides on climate change. I think most people really believe it's happening, they really believe it's serious, and what we have to do over the next 30 or 40 years to address it is an enormous transformation of the economy. It's not an unprecedented transformation of the economy, but it's like a mini industrial revolution. And that isn't going to happen if we just do a little bit of incremental this and have a few good ideas. An awful lot of things have to be put into practice on a huge scale if we're going to get there. And the ETI has been put together to address a part of that. So I'll start with the answer, the summary. We actually came into legal existence just before Christmas last year. We have 7 founder members, 6 big industrial companies, 2 oil companies or 2 energy companies, 2 electricity companies, and 2 huge systems engineering companies with slightly different portfolios and skills. So that's an enormously powerful set of capabilities that our members bring to the table in terms of reach, capabilities, professionalism, systems, whatever. Most of them are very passionate about the low carbon economy and energy technologies. So we have large numbers of people like Adam who know what they're doing, who participate in our activities. The government is also represented through the Department of Innovation, Universities and Skills and the Department for Transport. So the guy who is responsible for the government's £3.5 billion pounds a year, sorry, yes, something like that, £3.5 billion pounds a year of Research Council funding is a member of the ETI board. So we have a certain amount of intellectual clout, and they are a pretty demanding board. You don't go in front of them with a weak story. Each of those member companies is committed to putting £5 million a year in over 10 years. And the government is committed to matching that funding. And the government commitment would allow us to have up to 11 companies, so another 5 in addition to the first 6. And we're actively looking for new members, and we're not looking for members that look like the existing ones particularly. We want to broaden the gene pool of that talent. So for example, if we had a bank bringing some financing skills, or a retailer understanding consumers and consumer products, that would be good, and various other kinds of companies too. The strategy and the projects that we execute will be determined by the board, which is the partners, against the agreed target outcomes of the ETI. And the target outcomes of the ETI are to deliver the UK policy targets for energy. So although we are a private partnership, we're an industrial company, if you like, we're not a not-for-profit organisation, we are actually aligned on delivering in a commercially profitable and successful way, because it has to be the technologies that will enable the UK to meet its targets. And what we do is, it says invests, I guess in broad terms that's invest, but we're not acquiring any assets as a result of that investment other than knowledge assets and capability. And we're looking at climate change, energy security and energy poverty, or as I would put it, social equity, people's continued ability to access the energy they need to meet their needs, irrespective of their particular skills or income. And we plan to have a focused portfolio of large projects. So £5 million would be at the small end of the range of projects, and I think anything over £25 million would be a very, very serious discussion at the board, but in that range between 5 and 25. And the early projects we're looking at are exactly in that range. So complete consistency between the scale of funding required and the kinds of things we set out to do. And what we're trying to do is to accelerate the development, not research, but development, the demonstration and onwards to commercial deployment of low carbon technologies. So for example, you were to come to us with an idea and say, this idea needs to be developed, we'd say, is it ready for development, or is there still some basic invention and research you need to do on it? What's the overall plan? And if you say, well, I don't know, then that really makes it very hard for us to assess whether we should invest in the project or not. We're looking at both supply side, for example, the generation of electricity, so Adam gave you some examples of that, and also demand side, things like transport and buildings. Our model really, what we do is try and bring people together into consortia to create capability that did not exist before in that form in order to get the job done. And this is commercial capability. These are commercial consortia. They're not academic or research projects where the partners get together, work on something, and then disappear. So you get some quite interesting relationships developing in these activities.